The rain drummed steadily against the tiled roof, a constant rhythm that wrapped the quiet Bangkok neighborhood in a strange lullaby. Inside the spacious two-story house, Molly sat alone at the dining table, staring absently at the steam curling from her untouched cup of jasmine tea. It was late, well past midnight, and her husband, Anan, still hadn't returned from his business dinner. She tried to read a book, tried to distract herself with the familiar pages of a romance novel, but her eyes skimmed past the words without absorbing them. Something felt off tonight. She had lived with Anan for nearly 10 years, and though he was often late, tonight there was a tension in the air she couldn't shake. The shrill ring of the telephone shattered the silence. Molly jumped, her heart skipping a beat. She glanced at the clock, 12:37 a.m. Who would call at such an hour? She hesitated before answering, lifting the receiver with a trembling hand. Hello? Static crackled on the line. Then, a distorted voice, low and unrecognizable, slithered through the receiver. Your husband isn't who you think he is. Molly froze. Excuse me? Who is this? The voice continued, slow, deliberate. Check his briefcase, look inside the hidden pocket, and be careful, Molly. He's not the man you married. Before she could reply, the line went dead. She sat there, clutching the phone, her chest tightening. Her name. Whoever it was knew her name. The call wasn't random. It was intentional. Her first instinct was to laugh it off. Perhaps it was some cruel prank. But the seriousness of the voice lingered in her mind like a stain she couldn't scrub out. Minutes later, headlights flashed across the driveway. Anan's sleek black Mercedes purred to a stop. Molly quickly placed the receiver down and composed herself. She wasn't going to mention the call.
Not yet.
When Anan entered, his usual charm filled the room. He smelled faintly of expensive cologne and alcohol, his suit jacket casually draped over his arm. You're still awake, darling, he said, placing a kiss on her cheek. You worry too much. Molly forced a smile. Business dinner ran late? Very late, he chuckled, loosening his tie. But fruitful. You'll see the benefits soon. Her eyes drifted to his briefcase, the very one the caller had mentioned. He noticed her gaze and quickly set it by his side, a little too protectively. Something inside her stirred, a mix of dread and determination. She said nothing, but her mind was already racing. The next morning, the world looked deceptively normal. Sunlight streamed through the windows, scattering golden patches on the marble floor. Anan left early, kissing her forehead before heading to his office. As soon as his car disappeared down the street, Molly's eyes darted to the briefcase. Her pulse quickened. She carried it into the bedroom, locking the door behind her. Sitting on the edge of the bed, she ran her fingers over the leather, searching for anything unusual. The zipper compartments were neat, filled with contracts, reports, and a leather-bound planner. Nothing out of place. Then she remembered the voice. Look inside the hidden pocket. Her fingers explored the lining carefully until she found it, a tiny seam at the base of the case. Tugging at it, she discovered a hidden flap. Inside was a manila envelope. Her breath caught. She pulled it out, heart hammering. The envelope contained photographs, grainy but unmistakable. Anan, her husband, at a restaurant. Across the table sat a woman, younger, beautiful. The way he leaned in, the way their hands nearly touched across the candlelit table, Molly felt her throat close. She flipped through them, each picture more damning than the last. Hotel lobbies, parked cars, shadowy corners of alleys. And then, one that froze her blood, Anan handing a suitcase to a man she didn't recognize. What is this? She whispered to herself, tears welling in her eyes. Her phone buzzed, startling her. A text message from an unknown number. Do you believe me now? Molly's fingers trembled as she typed back. Who are you? No response. She sat there, photographs scattered across the bedspread, her world spinning out of control. When Anan returned that evening, he carried flowers, her favorite lilies. His smile was too wide, too rehearsed. For you, my love, to brighten the house. Molly forced a smile, hiding the envelope beneath a drawer earlier. "They're beautiful," she said softly, her voice betraying none of the storm inside her. But in that moment, as she watched him laugh and pour wine into their glasses, she knew her life would never be the same. Molly studied Anan more closely now. Every smile, every gesture, every word. She saw the nervous twitch at the corner of his mouth when she asked casual questions. She noticed how his phone never left his hand, how he excused himself to the balcony to take calls. One evening, as they sat down for dinner, she asked, almost playfully, "Did you meet anyone interesting at work today?" Anan's hand froze for a fraction of a second before he resumed cutting his steak. "Same old colleagues, nothing exciting." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Molly sipped her wine slowly, pretending to be convinced. But inside, her mind screamed, "Liar." Later that night, while Anan showered, she sneaked into his jacket pocket. She found a crumpled receipt from a luxury restaurant, not the one he had claimed to dine at. When he emerged from the bathroom, hair damp, he wrapped his arms around her from behind. "You're quiet tonight, darling. Everything all right?" She turned to face him, searching his eyes. "Just tired," she whispered, forcing a smile. He kissed her temple gently, unaware that her love was unraveling thread by thread. The following week, Molly decided she couldn't rely solely on the mysterious caller. She needed her own proof. So one evening, when Anan announced he had another business dinner, she followed him. Dressed in a plain blouse and cap, she kept her distance as he drove downtown. Her heart pounded as his car stopped in a poorly lit alley behind a hotel. She watched from the shadows as he stepped out, briefcase in hand. Another man emerged from the darkness. They exchanged words she couldn't hear, then Anan handed over the case. The man opened it briefly, revealing bundles of cash. Molly gasped softly, pulling out her phone. She snapped photos, her hands trembling. Anan glanced around suddenly, as if sensing eyes on him. Molly ducked behind a parked truck, holding her breath. After a tense moment, he climbed back into his car and drove off. She leaned against the cold metal, her whole body shaking. "This isn't just an affair," she whispered to herself. "It's something bigger." Her phone buzzed again. Another anonymous message. "Be careful. He's dangerous when cornered." Molly realized she couldn't handle this alone. That night, unable to sleep, she scrolled through her contacts until she found the name Precha, her family's trusted lawyer. The next morning, she met him at a quiet cafe. Precha was a tall, calm man in his 50s, his sharp gaze softened only by the steam rising from his coffee. "Molly," he said gently, "tell me everything." She handed him the photographs, her voice shaking as she recounted the calls, the envelope, the alley. He studied the evidence carefully, his face unreadable. Then he leaned back, steepling his fingers. "Your husband isn't just cheating. He's laundering money. These photos, this suitcase of cash, he's involved in something criminal." Molly's heart sank. "What do I do?" Preach's eyes locked on hers. "You stay calm. You smile at him. You let him believe he's safe. Meanwhile, we gather everything. Evidence, witnesses, paper trails. When the time comes, he won't see it coming." Molly exhaled shakily, relief and fear mixing inside her. For the first time in weeks, she felt she had an ally. But Precha wasn't finished. He leaned closer, his voice low. "And Molly, whoever tipped you off, they're not finished either. Which means this is just the beginning." A shiver ran down her spine. The house was silent that night, save for the faint hum of the air conditioner and the ticking clock in the living room. Anan had gone to bed earlier than usual, exhausted from his day, or at least pretending to be. Molly waited until his breathing turned heavy, then slid out of bed silently. Her bare feet made no sound against the polished floor as she crept into his study. The room smelled faintly of cigars and paper ink. His mahogany desk sat like a fortress, stacked with files neatly organized. But what drew her attention was the shredder in the corner, still warm, the faint smell of burnt paper hanging in the air. Her pulse raced as she approached. She reached inside the shredder bin, pulling out handfuls of jagged paper strips. They were fragments of contracts, signatures, bank statements. She spread them across the desk like a puzzle. By squinting and piecing together scraps, she managed to reconstruct a portion of one document. Property transfer, recipient, Somchai Holdings, offshore account. Her stomach twisted. He wasn't just hiding an affair. He was moving their assets, transferring everything under false names. A sound startled her. Footsteps on the stairs. Quickly, she shoved the scraps into a folder, closed the drawer, and slipped out the back door of the study. The next morning, she met Preacher again. She slid the folder across the table. "Can you make sense of this?" Preacher sifted through the scraps, his sharp eyes scanning quickly. "This is enough to start. He's moving property illegally. Molly, he's preparing to cut you off." Her chest constricted. "You mean he's trying to leave me with nothing?" Preacher nodded grimly. "But not if we're smarter." A few days later, Anan surprised her with a necklace. A diamond pendant so dazzling it sparkled even in the dim light of their living room. "For you, my darling," he said, fastening it around her neck. His voice was soft, too soft. Molly touched the necklace, her lips trembling. "Anan, it's beautiful. But why now?" He laughed, a hollow laugh. "Because you deserve it. Everything I do for you." But his eyes flickered away as he said it, his hand gripping the wine glass too tightly. Over the next week, the gifts continued. Designer handbags, perfumes, another surprise trip to Phuket that he insisted she take without asking too many questions. Molly recognized the pattern. These weren't acts of love. They were acts of guilt, of desperation. That evening, while admiring the glittering necklace in the mirror, she whispered to her reflection, "You're buying my silence, aren't you, Anan?" The reflection staring back looked different. Harder, colder. A woman ready to fight. Molly was shopping at the local market one afternoon when a woman brushed past her. She was middle-aged, with tired eyes and a scarf covering half her face. The woman paused, gripping Molly's wrist suddenly. Startled, Molly tried to pull back. "Excuse me." The woman's grip tightened. Her voice was urgent, almost desperate. "Leave him. Leave him before it's too late." Molly's eyes widened. "What? Who are you? How do you?" But before she could finish, the woman slipped into the crowd, vanishing among the bustle of vendors and customers. Molly stood frozen, her pulse racing. That night, she told Preacher about the encounter. He frowned, leaning back in his chair. "This means he's not only unfaithful, he's dangerous. Molly, you're not just in the middle of a marital betrayal. You're in the middle of a storm. And strangers don't risk warning someone unless the danger is real." She swallowed hard. What if she's right? What if he tries to hurt me? Preacher's eyes softened. "That's why you're not alone in this. I'll make sure of it." Anan had grown restless. His normally polished demeanor cracked in subtle ways. He deleted text messages the moment they arrived. He spent long hours in his study, with the door locked. Molly pretended not to notice, but her eyes missed nothing. One night, she watched from the crack of the study door as he burned documents in a small metal bin. His jaw was tense, sweat beading on his forehead. He muttered to himself, pacing, clutching his phone like a lifeline. "Who's leaking this? Who's watching me?" he whispered. Molly stepped back silently, her heart hammering. She lifted her phone and pressed record, capturing his mutterings, his frantic behavior, the burning papers. Later, she forwarded the video to Preacher. "This," he said over the phone, "is gold. He's destroying evidence, which means he knows he's guilty. Molly, every step he takes is another chain tightening around his neck." But deep down, Molly knew something else too. The more desperate Anan became, the more dangerous he was. The following week, Molly sat across from Preacher in his office. The city buzzed outside the tall windows, but inside, silence reigned. Preacher spread the photographs, shredded papers, and video recordings across the desk. His eyes gleamed with controlled determination. "This is enough to begin building a case. But we need patience. If we strike too soon, he'll find a way out. If we wait, he'll trap himself." Molly clenched her fists. "I want him to pay, Preacher. For the lies. For the betrayal. For everything. He leaned forward. And he will. But you must keep pretending. Smile at him. Eat dinner with him. Sleep beside him. Let him think you're blind. Her voice cracked with suppressed emotion. You're asking me to live with a man who disgusts me, to share a bed with him knowing he's planning to destroy me? Preach's expression softened, but his words remained firm. Yes. Because the longer he believes he's safe, the deeper he'll dig. And when the time comes, Molly, we won't just expose his infidelity, we'll strip him of everything. Molly wiped a tear from her cheek, nodding slowly. Then I'll do it. I'll play the perfect wife until it's time to show him who I really am. Preach's lips curved into a thin smile. That's the spirit. Let him bury himself. And when the last shovel of dirt is in place, we'll be waiting. The night was heavy with humidity, the city streets alive with neon lights and the hum of motorbikes weaving between cars. Molly's heart raced as she trailed Anan's Mercedes through the maze of Bangkok's bustling nightlife. She kept her distance, her hands gripping the wheel tightly, her breath shallow. Her disguise was simple, a plain blouse, dark jeans, her hair tucked beneath a baseball cap. It wasn't much, but she prayed it would be enough. Anan's car finally slowed, pulling up outside the grand facade of the Chantera Luxury Hotel, its glass doors reflecting the glow of chandeliers inside. Molly parked half a block away, slipping into the shadows as he exited the car, his briefcase in hand. Her stomach twisted as she followed, her pulse hammering in her ears. He walked swiftly, with the confidence of a man certain he was untouchable. Molly ducked into a corner near the elevators, her phone camera ready. She watched as Anan pressed the button and glanced at his watch. A woman appeared from the lobby bar, slender, striking, with raven black hair cascading down her shoulders. The same woman from the photographs. They smiled at each other with the familiarity of secret lovers. The woman leaned close, whispering something that made Anan chuckle. Together, they entered the elevator. Molly's chest tightened as the doors slid shut. Her trembling fingers still clutched the phone, recording until the very last second. Her mind screamed, "It's real. It's not just money laundering. It's betrayal in the flesh." She returned to her car, gasping for air. A message pinged her phone. "You see now, don't you? Be careful. This is only the surface." Molly gripped the phone so tightly her knuckles whitened. Whoever the mysterious informant was, they were watching too. The next morning, Anan sat at the breakfast table, scrolling through his phone while sipping coffee. Molly moved gracefully around the kitchen, plating toast, pouring juice. She forced her voice into a soft, casual tone. "You came home late again last night. Must have been quite a meeting." Anan's eyes flickered briefly before he plastered on a smile. "Yes. Investors from Singapore. Tedious people, but necessary." "Ah," she said, setting the toast in front of him. Her heart raced, but she kept her expression serene. "Hotel meetings?" Anan froze for the briefest of moments, then laughed loudly, shaking his head. No. Just the office." "Why?" Molly smiled sweetly. "Just curious. You work so hard." He leaned over, brushing her cheek with his lips. "All for you, my love. Always for you." She bit back the bile rising in her throat. Her mind replayed the image of him with the woman at the hotel, the way they smiled at each other, the intimacy. Anan, oblivious to the storm in her chest, continued scrolling on his phone. Molly turned away, her eyes darkening with resolve. 2 days later, Molly stumbled upon another damning piece of evidence. She had entered Anan's study while he was out, pretending to tidy the shelves, when she found a folder left carelessly on the desk. Inside were property transfer documents, signed and ready. The recipient? The same woman from the hotel. Her fingers trembled as she skimmed the papers. Their mansion. Their holiday villa in Phuket. Even the company's office building. He wasn't just betraying her heart. He was stripping her of everything she owned, everything she had helped build with him over the years. Her phone buzzed, "Preacha." She answered immediately. "Preacha," she whispered, her voice shaking. "He's transferring everything. To her." "Don't panic," Preacha said calmly. Send me photos of the documents. Quickly. She snapped images of each page, her hands steady despite her rage. Good, he said after she sent them. I'll intercept this. He won't even know the papers are invalid until it's too late. Molly, you've just given us leverage he can't escape. Her chest rose and fell rapidly. I want to see him fall, Preacha. Completely. And he will, the lawyer promised. One move at a time. That night, Molly decided to test him. As they sat in the living room, the television playing some mindless drama, she turned to him casually. Anan, who is she? His head jerked up, eyes narrowing. Who? The woman you've been seeing. The one from the hotel. For a moment, silence filled the air, thick and suffocating. Then his voice rose, sharp and angry. Who told you that? Who's been putting lies in your head? Molly didn't flinch. She kept her gaze steady, her voice calm. I just asked a question. Anan stood abruptly, pacing the room, his fists clenching. This is ridiculous. I won't tolerate baseless accusations in my own home. Molly tilted her head slightly, her lips curving into a faint smile. Then why are you so defensive? His face turned red, his mouth opening, then closing. He looked like a man cornered, fighting to regain control. Finally, he stormed upstairs, slamming the door behind him. Molly leaned back on the couch, her heart pounding but her expression serene. The crack in his mask had appeared, and once it cracked, it would only shatter further. The following evening, Molly invited Preacha to dinner. She didn't tell Anan until the last moment, watching his face pale as the lawyer walked through the door. An unexpected guest, Anan said, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. What a surprise. Preacha returned the smile coolly, shaking his hand firmly. Anan, thank you for having me. They sat at the table, the air thick with unspoken tension. Molly served the food with practiced grace, her eyes flicking between the two men. Halfway through the meal, Preacha cleared his throat and set down his fork. I've been reviewing some interesting documents lately. Anan stiffened. Oh. Preacha slid a folder across the table. Anan's trembling hands opened it. Inside were copies of the photographs, the shredded paper fragments reconstructed, the property transfer documents. His face drained of color. Where did you get this? Preacha's eyes were cold, unwavering. From your own carelessness. You see, Anan, you're not as clever as you think. Molly watched her husband's face contort, shock, fear, and rage battling for dominance. Anan's voice was hoarse. Molly, you. But Molly interrupted softly, her voice like steel wrapped in silk. I'm done pretending, Anan. I know everything. And soon everyone else will too. The clatter of Anan's fork hitting the plate echoed like a gunshot in the dining room. The dining room's crystal chandelier threw fractured light across Anan's face, bleaching him pale. He stared at the folder on the table as if it were a venomous snake. Preacha's gaze never wavered. Molly's hands were steady as she folded her napkin, placed it beside her plate, and leaned back in her chair. Who told you? Anan rasped. Who's feeding you this poison? Molly didn't blink. Your mistakes did. The silence seemed to amplify the distant thrum of the city. Outside, the wind toyed with the bougainvillea along the balcony, a soft shiver through leaves. Nothing like the storm inside the room. Anan pushed his chair back and stood. His eyes flitted from Molly to Preacha, measuring, calculating. Then he exhaled, a broken sound, and dropped into the chair again. I did it for you, he said, and it might have sounded convincing to anyone who didn't know him. You have no idea what I was up against. Molly tilted her head. Then enlighten me. He ran a hand through his hair. Investors. Partners. People you don't want to owe favors to. If I didn't move assets, if I didn't keep them happy, we'd lose everything. You, this house, our lives. I met with Nietzsche because I had no choice. Nietzsche, Molly repeated, the name a cut of glass on her tongue. The woman you wanted to transfer our home to? It was temporary, he lied quickly. Paper shields. You shift things for a few months, you settle debts, you move them back. That's how survival works. Preach's voice slid into the conversation like a cold blade. Survival or greed? Anan's jaw tightened. You think you know this world, lawyer? You don't. It's not contracts and courtroom speeches. It's threats and alleys. It's men who don't forget what you owe. And yet, Preacha said, you found time for hotel suites. Anan's eyes flared. For a heartbeat, the charming husband dropped away, revealing the man beneath. Cornered, feral, dangerous. You don't get to judge me. I don't have to, Preacha said mildly. Judges do that. Molly stood, the scrape of the chair soft as silk, and the men both looked at her. You're right about one thing, Anan, she said quietly. I don't know the men you owe, but I know the man you promised to be. And I know what it looks like when someone burns the life you built together and calls the smoke protection. She picked up the folder, the proof, the future, and tucked it beneath her arm. If you want to protect me, she added, you can start by telling the truth. Anan swallowed. If I talk, he whispered, they come for all of us. We'll be ready, Molly said, and even she was surprised by the iron in her own voice. When she and Preacha stepped into the hallway, Anan followed, voice hollow. Molly, please. She faced him, a last mercy in her eyes. You had choices, she said. You made them. He reached for her hand. She didn't move. I'm still your husband. No, she said, and her voice didn't tremble at all. You're my warning. The door clicked shut behind her, and Anan was left in the softened gold of the chandelier, the room suddenly too big, the air suddenly too thin. Bangkok's heat pressed down like a hand. In a discreet conference room overlooking the river, the blinds were half closed, cutting the afternoon into stripes of light. Molly sat across from Preacha, and beside him, the woman from the photographs, Nicha, kept her gaze on the table as if afraid of what the air might do with her words. Thank you for coming, Preacha said. I know this isn't easy. Nicha's smile was a ghost. If I don't speak now, she murmured, I'll never stop running. Molly studied her. Up close, the glamour peeled back. Nicha's lipstick was immaculate and useless. Fatigue hollowed her cheeks. A faint tremor moved through her fingers as she unfolded a stack of printouts. Anan contacted me through Somchai Holdings, Nicha began. It wasn't meant to be personal. He needed a conduit. We both got involved. Molly didn't flinch. Involved, she echoed. I'm not proud, Nicha said. I know what I did. But the accounts. She tapped the papers. These are transfer schedules, bank trails, offshore links, password hints. He used my name to mask movements, then planned to shift the property into a trust. After that, she looked up. He told me I didn't exist. Convenient, Preacha said dryly. Nicha's eyes glittered, not with anger, but with a brittle, exhausted clarity. I was never the prize. I was the pipeline. You're willing to testify? Preacha asked. Nicha blew out a breath. You'll need more than me. But yes. And I have voice notes. She slid her phone across the table. He talks too much when he's winning. They listened. Anan's voice poured from the speaker, smooth and confident and, now, damning. Move the villa first. She's distracted with charity work. We push it through Somchai. Nobody looks twice. After that, the mansion. If she makes noise, we drown it in paperwork. If she gets a lawyer, I'll burn the trail. Molly stared at the blinds until the lines blurred. The words she hung in the air with the lethality of a blade. She, as if Molly were an obstacle, not a person. Nicha's voice softened. I thought I mattered, she said. But I was just a shadow wearing a ring he never gave me. Molly turned to her. Why help us now? Nicha's lips trembled. Because he's not afraid of me anymore. Because when a man like that stops fearing you, you disappear. Preacha gathered the documents, each sheet another nail in a coffin no one could yet see. We'll file the injunctions tonight. We'll move for an emergency freeze. We'll subpoena Somchai and the banks and the hotel. Nicha flinched at the last word. Molly stood and, to her own surprise, extended her hand. Thank you. Nicha's fingers were cool. He'll come for you, she whispered. But he won't expect how you'll fight. A phone vibrated on the table. Not Nietzsche's. Not Preach's. Molly's. An unknown number. A text. He thinks the fire will hide the footprints. Don't let it. Molly looked at Preacha. The informant again, she said. He nodded once. Then we don't waste time. By morning, the first orders hit like thunderclaps. Accounts frozen. Property transfers suspended. Court date expedited. The mansion, once an emblem of certainty, felt like a set waiting for the final act. Workers that Anan had summoned days ago to inspect renovations were turned away at the gate by court notice. The security guard read the paper 3 times, eyes widening with each pass. Anan tore the notice from the guard's hand. I'll handle this, he snapped, and strode across the marble like a king who hadn't noticed his crown melting. Molly watched from the upstairs landing. She didn't hide. Not anymore. He looked up and pointed at the paper, a command trembling beneath the gesture. Fix this. I already did, she said. He laughed, too loud, too sharp. You think a handful of signatures and a hobbyist lawyer can stop me? Preacha stepped from the study, no longer the shadow behind the queen, but the rook rolling down the board. I'm very good at being underestimated, he said pleasantly. It makes judges smile when the filings are immaculate. Anan's gaze flicked between them, a storm searching for lightning. You wanted a war, he said to Molly. Congratulations. I wanted a husband, she replied. I'm improvising. When the reporters came, because they always come when money and scandal shake hands, Anan tried to slither through the gate with a smile. Microphones flowered in his path. Is it true you attempted to siphon assets to an offshore trust? Who is Nietzsche, and why is she on the transfer papers? Did your wife catch you at the Chantera Hotel? For a split second, he looked like a boy stealing mangoes and getting caught by his aunt. Then his mask snapped back into place. He glided past the questions, a rehearsed smirk in place, and the cameras grabbed only deflections and posture. Inside, he found the study door locked. Open it, he demanded. No, Molly said from the hall. Open it, Molly. Court custody, she said. Ask your hobbyist lawyer. He took a step toward her. The distance between them was a quiet battlefield. I made this life, he whispered. You made a labyrinth, she corrected. And then you got lost in it. His phone rang, a ringtone Molly didn't recognize. He answered, listened, and the color ran out of his face. No, he said into the receiver. No. You told me 2 weeks. A pause. Don't you dare. Don't. He ended the call and slammed the phone down so hard it skittered across the console table. They're pulling out, he said. The partners. They think I'm radioactive. That makes 3 of us, Molly said softly. He stared at her. For the first time, there was no anger in his eyes. Only bewilderment, like a man watching his own house recite a poem he didn't know it had learned. Why didn't you just look the other way, he asked. Because I still look in mirrors, she said and walked past him. That night, he didn't come home. The house exhaled. The pool lights washed the garden in dreamlike blue, and somewhere, a gecko chirruped as if announcing a new season. Molly lay awake, not with fear, but with the buzzing clarity of someone who has stopped bargaining with a fire. The courtroom on Cherwin Krung Road smelled faintly of old wood and older arguments. Fans spun above with a lazy insistence, slicing the air into manageable pieces. Lawyers shuffled files like priests preparing for ritual. The judge's bench, dignified as a mountain, waited. Molly sat beside Preacha. Nietzsche sat behind them, a scarf wrapped loosely around her neck, her hands clasped too tightly in her lap. Anan entered flanked by his new counsel, a young man with sharp shoes and sharper cheekbones. The counsel tried to project certainty. It clung to him like a suit 2 sizes too big. All rise, the bailiff intoned. They did. What followed was not a battle so much as a peeling back of skin. Preacha's voice, precise and unhurried, placed exhibit after exhibit on the altar. The shredded papers reconstructed, the photographs of alleyway exchanges, hotel logs, bank records, the attempted property transfers. The voice notes played, and Anan's bravado filled the courtroom like smoke that couldn't find a window. The defense tried. They spun debts into duty, transfers into tactical necessity, Nietzsche into a malicious opportunist. But the pieces didn't assemble into anything a reasonable mind could call a picture. They scattered when touched. Then Nietzsche took the stand. Her voice didn't shake as much as everyone expected. He told me I was temporary, she said. That women like me were for the dirty work. He promised me safety. Then he promised me silence. I figured out which one was real. The defense pounced. You benefited, didn't you? You enjoyed the money. Nietzsche's smile was brittle. You mistake endurance for enjoyment, and you only turned when you felt discarded. The defense pressed. She looked at Molly, then at Anan. No, she said. I turned when I saw the paperwork for the mansion. That house has her name pressed into the walls. You don't steal a woman's home and call it business. A murmur rippled through the gallery. Someone coughed. The judge wrote something down and, for the first time, glanced toward Molly as if the story on paper had grown breath and bones. When it was over, the judge's decision came down with startling swiftness. The preliminary injunctions upheld, asset freeze extended, protective orders granted, a forensic audit ordered. Words like fiduciary breach, fraudulent conveyance, and constructive trust took on the weight of iron. Anan didn't look at Molly when the gavel fell. He looked at the door. He always had. Outside, microphones bloomed again, but this time they tilted toward Molly. Mrs., will you keep the company? What will you do with the properties? What would you say to other wives in your position? Molly met the microphones like eyes. That grief is not the same as surrender, she said. And that trust doesn't mean blindness. One question cut through the rest. Do you feel sorry for your husband? She thought of vows said under white lights, of lilies on the table, of laughter that had been true once. She thought of envelopes beneath the lining of a briefcase, of fires and shredded paper and hotel elevators. I feel sorry for the part of him that could have chosen better, she said. And I feel grateful I chose again. Preacha guided her toward the car, not with haste but with care, like a conductor seeing a soloist off stage. Before she climbed in, she turned to him. You did it, she said. His smile was brief and warm. No, he said. You did. I just wrote it down. The city outside the window looked different on the ride home, not new, but newly legible. The river glinted like a signature, perfectly placed. Vendors shouted. Motorbikes stitched the lanes together. Life went on, and Molly realized that this, too, was a kind of victory. Not the ending of something, but the rejoining of everything else. The house was quiet that evening in a way that felt earned. The staff had been given the week off with full pay, Molly's decision, not Anan's, and the silence felt like a skin she had chosen, not a shroud she had been handed. She stood on the balcony with a cup of jasmine tea and watched the city lights come on one by one. Somewhere far off, fireworks popped like small applause. She smiled despite herself. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. You're welcome, the text read. She stared at it, the shape of the words a key that had finally decided it was ready to be turned. Then the call came, same unknown number. She answered, the night holding its breath. The voice was the same, distorted, careful. You held the line, it said. Good. Who are you? Molly asked. Why help me? A pause. An inhale. Because men like Anan are always curated by someone else. And because someone else just lost a very obedient courier. Courier, Molly repeated. You make him sound small. The voice laughed, sad. Maybe. He is. You've cut off a pipeline. But pipelines have sources. Molly leaned against the railing, the metal cool beneath her palm. If you know so much, why don't you take it to the police? I do in my way, the voice said. But paper travels slowly when it's heavy with names. You're faster. You risked my life with those tips, she said. And you never told me what to fear. I told you enough, the voice replied. And I knew you had a lawyer who could set the table. Molly's mind ticked. How did you know that? No answer. The city hummed a low chord. "What do you want from me?" she asked. Another pause, as if the voice were tilting its head to look at something just outside the frame. "To stay awake. To not let victory put you to sleep. Your husband wasn't the only one laundering something. He was just laundering money." "What else is there?" she asked. "Stories," the voice said. "Reputations. Legacies. Sometimes the cleanest people have the dirtiest friends. You'll get an invitation soon. To a charity gala, new sponsors, new faces. Smile for the cameras. Shake hands. And when you feel a cold spot in the air at your back, turn around." The line clicked off. Molly lowered the phone slowly. The river below was a ribbon of black silk, and somewhere in the distance, thunder stitched faintly through the clouds. Inside, the doorbell rang. She wasn't expecting anyone. She set the cup down and walked through the house, her footsteps soft. At the front entrance, she checked the monitor. A courier stood at the gate, cap low, package cradled in both hands. No company logo. No sender name. "Leave it on the step," she said into the intercom. The courier nodded and turned to go. Molly waited until the motorbike whined diminished into the night. Then she opened the door and lifted the package. It was heavier than she expected. She took it to the kitchen island and cut the twine. Inside lay a single item wrapped in brown paper. She peeled it back and found a ledger. Old-fashioned, thick, the kind of book that still smelled faintly of ink and dust even in an age of passwords and clouds. She opened it. Names. Dates. Arrows. Company logos. Somchai Holdings wasn't the first entry, nor the second. It was page 12. Above it, Chantera Group Charitable Wing. Below it, Riverside Cultural Fund. Familiar last names. Old family friends. A judge's cousin. A celebrity with a perfect smile and an immaculate conscience. Arrows curved toward a column titled Placements. A note was taped to the inside cover in small, neat handwriting. Your husband was an entry. Your fight is a chapter. Decide if you want a book. Molly exhaled, a sound that could have been a laugh if it hadn't carried so much astonishment. She closed the ledger and rested her palm on the cover, feeling the thud of her pulse through the cardboard. Her phone buzzed again, this time not the unknown number, but Precha. "Are you all right?" he asked, and the warmth in his voice surprised her. It wasn't professional. It was personal. Human. "I'm fine," she said. "And I think I have a new project." "Does it involve danger?" he asked dryly. "What doesn't?" she murmured. "Do I need to come over?" he added, and there was a steadiness beneath the offer that made her realize that even victories can have anchors. She looked at the ledger, at the old world printed in new light. She thought of echoing ballrooms and crisp white name tags and a cold spot in the air at her back. "Yes," she said, "but come through the back. And bring new folders." "You're impossible," he said, though she could hear the smile. "I'm awake," she corrected softly. When she ended the call, she took the ledger to the study and set it beside the now-emptied shredder, two relics of opposite faiths. She opened a fresh notebook, wrote tonight's date at the top, and beneath it a single sentence. "Some pipelines carry money. Others carry truth." The doorbell chimed again once, then twice, as if asking permission to become a heartbeat. The night stretched forward like a road that wanted to be walked. Molly stood, smoothed her hair, and went to let her lawyer in. In the foyer's mirror, she caught her reflection, tired, yes, changed, certainly, afraid, not at all. For a moment, she lifted the ledger and saw her own face superimposed on the cover like a watermark, faint, steady, indelible. Her phone lit on the table with one last message from the unknown number. Season 2. Molly smiled, the kind of smile that rewrites endings. "Always," she whispered to the empty room, and turned the lock. The end.